Captain Kim stood at the viewport of his quarters, watching as maintenance crews prepared his ship for its new commander. After 10 years of loyal service, his career ended with a single message. Resolution 7293 Delta is now in effect. All human military personnel are to withdraw from active service within 48 hours. The ship had been his home. The crew, his family. Now aliens from across the galaxy would continue the fight against the Karax threat, while humans sat on the sidelines. Captain? A soft knock at his door. Permission to enter. Kim turned to find Lieutenant Park, his intelligence officer, holding a data tablet. Her usually neat uniform looked wrinkled, suggesting she hadn't slept. Not a captain anymore, Park, just Kim now. You'll always be captain to me, sir. She stepped inside, checking the corridor before closing the door. Something doesn't add up about this ban. Kim sighed, packing the last of his personal items. The council made their decision. Humanitarian concerns, they said, as if we're too fragile for war. That's just it. Park activated her tablet, projecting battle statistics into the air between them. I've been reviewing combat data from the last 3 years. Look at these engagement patterns. Kim studied the holographic display. Colored dots represented different species in battle situations. Notice anything strange? Park asked, eyes bright. With discovery, Kim leaned closer. The enemy formations, they break differently when facing human squads. Exactly. Park's voice rose with excitement. The Karax retreat at 38% casualty rate against human units, but fight to 72% losses against other species. Kim frowned. They're more afraid of us. It's not just the Karax. Park swiped to a new display. Allied forces show unusual stress responses when fighting alongside humans. Their performance drops, but their survival rates increase by 23%. The Council knows this? Park nodded. These reports were filed by Admiral No last year, sealed under highest classification. So we're not being benched because we're weak, Kim said slowly, understanding dawning. We're being benched because we're scary, Park finished. Something about how humans fight terrifies both enemies and allies. Captain Kim walked to his window again, watching as a Drellid officer, his replacement, boarded the ship. The alien moved with precise calculated steps. No wasted motion, perfectly logical. I need to know more, Kim said finally. This isn't about protection. There's something they're not telling us. Park handed him the tablet. Security footage from the Rigel campaign. Watch how the Zentari soldiers react when your team changes tactics mid-battle. The video showed alien allies freezing momentarily when human soldiers improvised a new approach mid-fight. The aliens seemed confused by the sudden shift, while the human soldiers flowed seamlessly into the new strategy. They don't understand us, Kim whispered. We don't follow the patterns they expect. The council meeting that approved the ban was closed to human representatives, Park added. But I have a friend in communications who recorded it. She played the audio, keeping the volume low. The humans are unpredictable, a high whistling voice argued. Their tactics defy strategic modeling. They embrace chaos. Their presence destabilizes unit cohesion, another voice agreed. They make decisions based on what they call gut feelings, rather than calculated probabilities. The psychological impact on our forces cannot be ignored, a third voice added. Soldiers report feeling unsettled by human combat methods. They describe humans as relentless and terrifyingly creative when facing obstacles. Kim felt a strange pride mixed with concern. They fear us because we don't think like them. The vote was unanimous, Park said, shutting down the recording. Every council species agreed that humans should be removed from combat roles. Through the viewport, Kim watched as his crew disembarked, replaced one by one with alien personnel. Each new officer moved with that same mechanical precision, following protocols developed through thousands of years of space warfare. The Karax are winning this war, Kim said quietly. They've adapted to the Council's traditional tactics. Yes, Park nodded grimly. Last week they destroyed 3 coalition fleets using counter-strategies that exploited the predictable nature of Council battle plans. Kim's hand tightened on the tablet. And now they've removed the one unpredictable element from the equation. What do we do? Park asked. Kim was silent for a long moment, watching his ship, no longer his, prepare for departure. When he turned back to Park, his expression had changed. "First, we learn exactly what it is about humans that frightens them so much," he said. "Then we use it." Park smiled for the first time that day. "I know someone who can help us access the complete files. She works in the Council archives." "Good." Kim packed the tablet with his belongings. "The Council thinks removing humans from the battlefield protects everyone. Soon they'll learn why that was their biggest mistake." The Council archive was a massive structure that floated in orbit around Centauri Prime, its crystalline walls glinting in the light of 3 suns. Park and Kim approached in a small transport shuttle, both dressed as civilian researchers. "Are you sure we can trust this Dr. Tay?" Kim asked, adjusting the fake credentials hanging from his neck. Park nodded. "She's different from the others. She spent 20 years studying humans, actually lives on Earth part of the year." Their shuttle docked at a secondary entrance where a slender alien waited. Dr. Tay had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Her 4 eyes blinked independently as she scanned the corridor before motioning them inside. "Quickly," she said, her voice musical despite her obvious tension. "The security systems will reset in 4 minutes." They followed her through winding passages, past rooms filled with data crystals, stretching from floor to ceiling. "I've been reviewing the classified material since the ban," Dr. Tay explained. "What they've done is—" She searched for the word wrong. She led them to a small research chamber and sealed the door behind them. "We have 20 minutes before questions might be asked about my access patterns." Kim looked around the room nervously. "Will they know we're here?" "No," Dr. Tay said, activating a console. "I've looped the security feeds. As far as anyone knows, I'm alone." The center of the room lit up with a 3-dimensional display showing battle simulations. Human soldiers moved through combat zones alongside various alien forces. "The Council's official position is that humans were banned for your own protection," Dr. Tay said, manipulating the controls. "But that was never the real reason." The display shifted to show medical data, brain scans and physiological readings from alien soldiers. "These are stress responses from Trell soldiers fighting alongside humans during the Battle of Deneb," Dr. Tay explained. "Notice the spike in fear hormones when the human units changed tactics mid-battle." Park leaned closer. "Their brain patterns show extreme anxiety." "Yes," Dr. Tay nodded. "Most Council species develop battle strategies through consensus and adhere to them precisely. When humans suddenly improvise, what your commanders call adapting to the situation, it creates psychological distress for alien soldiers." "But we're winning those battles," Kim pointed out. "Yes, and that's part of the problem." Dr. Tay pulled up another data set. "Council military doctrine is built on predictability. Every species follows known patterns. The Narvac always establish perimeter defenses before advancing. The Grell always attack in triangular formations. Everyone knows what everyone else will do." "Except humans," Park said. "Exactly." Dr. Tay displayed footage from a ground battle. The view followed a squad of human Marines responding to an ambush. Within seconds, they split into unexpected formations, used equipment in ways it wasn't designed for, and turned the ambush against their attackers. To Council strategists, this behavior appears random, even chaotic, Dr. Tay continued. "They can't understand how your soldiers make these decisions so quickly, without central command." Kim smiled slightly. "We call it initiative." Dr. Tay nodded. "What's remarkable is that your chaos has patterns of its own, patterns that make sense to other humans, but appear wildly unpredictable to Council species." She pulled up another file, this one showing Council members in a heated debate. "This is from 3 days before Resolution 7293 Delta passed," she explained. The recording showed a tall, insect-like alien gesturing dramatically. "The human capacity for tactical improvisation defies all prediction algorithms. Their presence introduces too many variables into battle planning." Another Council member, a bulky creature with stone-like skin, responded, "My troops refuse to serve alongside them. They say the humans make decisions that appear suicidal, only to emerge victorious through actions no sane species would attempt." "You're not just unpredictable," Dr. Tay said, turning to them. "You're unpredictably successful, and that terrifies them." Park sat heavily in a chair. "So they didn't ban us because we were weak. They banned you because you're too effective in ways they can't control," Dr. Tay finished. Kim paced the small room. "The Caracs are winning because they've figured out the patterns of council warfare. They know exactly what to expect." "Yes," Dr. Tay confirmed, bringing up battle reports. "Coalition losses have increased 340% since the human ban took effect. The Caracs have adapted to the predictable nature of council tactics." She accessed another file, this one heavily encrypted. This was the final assessment that convinced the council to remove humans. The file contained psychological profiles of various alien soldiers after serving with human units. The translations were stark. They don't feel fear like we do. They smile when battle plans collapse. They keep fighting when all logical outcomes point to defeat. They treat death as a possibility rather than a certainty. "The council species are long-lived," Dr. Tay explained gently. "Some live for centuries. Humans live shorter lives but fight with an intensity other species find disturbing." Kim studied the reports. "They think we're reckless. They think you're terrifying," Dr. Tay corrected. "And they're losing this war without you." Park downloaded data to her secure tablet. "The Caracs are pushing deeper into coalition space every day. We need to do something." "What can we do?" Kim asked. "The ban is official. We'd be shot down if we tried to join the fight." Dr. Tay's eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture they'd learned meant she was thinking deeply. There might be a way. Not all council members agreed with the ban. Some recognized the tactical advantage humans provide, even if they found your methods unsettling. She accessed another file showing a list of names. "These officials might help quietly. They're watching the war turn against them and reconsidering the decision." Kim studied the list. "Admiral Song is on here. I served under him during the Proxima campaign." "We need more than a few sympathetic aliens," Park said. "We need proof that humans are necessary to win this war." Dr. Tay switched off the display as a soft alarm chimed. "Our time is up. I've copied everything important to your device." She hesitated, then added, "There's one more thing you should know. The ban wasn't just about protecting coalition forces from psychological distress." "What then?" Kim asked. "The Caracs have never faced humans in battle," Dr. Tay said. "The Council feared what would happen when they did. They feared the Caracs might surrender, or that humans might enjoy the fight too much. Either outcome raised questions no one wanted to answer. The emergency alert sounded throughout Coalition headquarters, its harsh tone cutting through the normal buzz of activity. Officers of a dozen different species rushed to their stations as massive displays lit up with incoming battle data. "Caracs forces have broken through the Arcturus defense line," announced a tall, reed-thin alien with silvery skin. "3 Coalition battle groups destroyed, 2 more in retreat." Admiral Lee stood motionless at the center of the command floor, his weathered face revealing nothing as he processed the disaster unfolding before him. As the only human still permitted in Coalition High Command, a political appointment meant to soften the blow of Resolution 7293 Delta, he watched with growing frustration as his alien colleagues responded exactly as the Caracs expected them to. "Deploy reinforcements from the Rigel sector," ordered General Ziv, a hulking reptilian who commanded the Coalition's largest fleet. "Standard defense pattern Omega-6. Lee bit his tongue. Omega-6 was the textbook response to this situation, which meant the Caracs would have planned for it. Sure enough, within 20 minutes, the reinforcement fleet reported heavy casualties. "They were waiting for us," came the desperate transmission. "Ambush at the jump point. Half our ships lost in the first volley." The command center fell silent. Lee looked around at the alien officers, seeing shock in their various anatomies. This wasn't supposed to happen. Their battle algorithms had calculated a 93% success rate for the reinforcement strategy. "They know our playbook," Lee said quietly to his aide, a young Proximan named Toll. "Every move we make, they're 3 steps ahead." "Perhaps we should consider alternative approaches," Toll suggested carefully. "So you mean human approaches," Lee replied. "Good luck with that. The Council would rather lose the war than admit they were wrong about us." Another alert sounded. more urgent than the first. The main display showed a new Carax battle fleet approaching, the Sirius colony, home to over 4 billion civilians from various coalition species. Evacuation transports won't have time to launch, someone said, voice hollow with despair. Admiral Lee had seen enough. He left the main floor, motioning for Toll to follow him into a private conference room. Once the door sealed, he activated a jamming device to prevent surveillance. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," he ordered. "Military eyes only." Toll's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in alarm. "Admiral, that would violate—" "I know exactly what it violates," Lee interrupted, "and I don't care. We're about to lose this war, and billions of lives with it." Minutes later, the secure channel opened. General Yun of Earth's Defense Force appeared on screen, her expression grim. "I've been watching the reports," she said without preamble. "It's worse than we thought." Lee nodded. "The Carax have completely adapted to coalition tactics. They're predicting every move before we make it, and the Council still won't reconsider the ban. They're in emergency session now, but they're paralyzed by procedure. By the time they reach a decision, the Sirius colony will be gone." General Yun was silent for a moment. "What are you proposing, Admiral?" Lee took a deep breath. "Operation Shadow. The contingency plan we developed when the ban first went into effect. That's drastic. This is a drastic moment, General. I need your ships, your soldiers. Officially, Earth will deny everything. Unofficially, we'll be there." General Yun's face hardened with resolve. "But my people will need access to coalition intelligence and supply chains." "You'll have it," Lee promised. "I still have enough authority to redirect resources without specific approval. We can claim equipment malfunctions, accounting errors." "What about crews? The Carax will know they're facing humans." Lee smiled thinly. "That's counting on. The Coalition fears our unpredictability. Let's show the Carax why." After the transmission ended, Toll looked at the Admiral with a mixture of admiration and fear. "The Council will court-martial you when they discover this." "Probably," Lee agreed. "But they can only do that if we win." He returned to the command center, where the situation had deteriorated further. The Carax advance had accelerated, cutting through coalition defenses like they weren't even there. "Admiral," called an analyst, "we're detecting unusual readings from the Carax command ships. They appear to be celebrating." Lee walked to the station, examining the data himself. The analyst was right. The Carax communication channels were filled with what their translators identified as victory chants. "They think the war is already won," Lee said. "They believe the outcome is inevitable." He straightened, a cold determination settling in his chest. "They've never faced humans. In battle, they have no idea what's coming." Over the next 12 hours, Lee worked quietly but deliberately, redirecting coalition resources through a maze of bureaucratic channels. Supply ships changed course. Weapons caches were marked defective and rerouted. Intelligence data flowed through back channels to Earth. Meanwhile, on the outer edge of coalition space, mothballed human warships were quietly powering up. Veterans who had been forced into retirement found their old uniforms. Pilots who had been teaching simulators instead of flying real missions climbed back into cockpits. In a secret briefing room on Lunar Base, Captain Kim addressed the first wave of Operation Shadow volunteers. "This mission is unsanctioned," he told them bluntly. "If we're captured, the Coalition will deny our existence. Earth will claim we went rogue." The room was filled with hardened veterans, men and women who had been forced to watch from the sidelines as the war went badly. "The Carax have never fought humans," Kim continued. "They've only faced aliens who fight according to established doctrine and predictable patterns. They have no defense against what we do best: improvisation, adaptation, and the human talent for controlled chaos." Lieutenant Park stepped forward with intelligence briefings. "The Carax will expect standard coalition responses. They won't expect us. Our job is to hit them hard, hit them fast, and vanish before they can analyze our tactics." A pilot raised her hand. "What about coalition forces? Will they know we're coming?" Kim shook his head. "Only Admiral Lee and a few trusted officers know about Operation Shadow. As far as the coalition is concerned, we don't exist." "So we could be fired on by both sides," someone pointed out. "That's why we'll be running dark," Kim explained. No. Identification signals. All communications encrypted. We're ghosts in this fight. The briefing continued with battle plans that deliberately avoided standard military doctrine. When it concluded, the room hummed with the energy that had been missing since the ban went into effect, the unique electricity of humans preparing for battle. On the Coalition command station, Admiral Lee received a simple encoded message. Shadows. Moving into position, he deleted it immediately and returned to the command floor, where Coalition officers continued their desperate but predictable defense. The Carax fleet was now just hours from the Sirius colony. We should evacuate high-value personnel, suggested a council representative who had joined the command staff. The tactical situation appear unfavorable. No, Lee said firmly. No evacuations. Tell every ship to hold position. But Admiral, the battle projections show. I know what they show, Lee interrupted. But sometimes you have to ignore the odds and trust your gut. The alien officers exchanged confused glances. This wasn't protocol, this wasn't logical. This was human thinking. Lee smiled to himself as he imagined the surprise that awaited the Carax. They had studied Coalition tactics perfectly, but they had never experienced the controlled chaos that humans brought to battle. Sir, his aide whispered, the first shadow ships will engage in 30 minutes. Lee nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then we're about to show the galaxy why banning humans from the battlefield was their biggest mistake. The decommissioned battlecruiser Dauntless drifted silently through the debris field at the edge of the Sirius system. Once the pride of Earth's fleet, the ship had been officially scrapped after Resolution 7293 Delta. Yet here it was, running dark with minimal power signatures, its hull repainted in non-reflective black. On the bridge, Captain Kim studied the tactical display showing the approaching Carax armada, 50 ships in perfect formation, moving with mathematical precision toward the vulnerable colony. All hands to battle stations, Kim ordered quietly. Silent approach. No comms until my mark. Throughout the hidden fleet, 12 ships scattered strategically through the system, human crews prepared for battle. These weren't fresh-faced recruits, but veterans pulled from retirement, pilots who had been teaching instead of flying, Marines, who had been forced to become civilians when the Council decided humans were too unpredictable for war. Commander Han's voice came through on the encrypted channel. Scout team in position. Carax still unaware of our presence. Han had been one of the most decorated pilots before the ban. Now she commanded the smallest, fastest ships in their makeshift fleet, ships officially listed as destroyed in training. Accidents. Remember, Kim reminded everyone, the Carax have never faced human tactics. Their entire strategy is built on predicting standard Coalition responses. Park, now serving as his tactical officer, looked up from her station. Carax, Vane Fleet 5 minutes from engagement range. Launch scout team, Kim ordered. Implement battle plan Crazy Ivan. Several officers smiled at the name, a reference to an ancient Earth submarine tactic that had seemed insane until it worked. In the darkness of space, 6 small attack craft detached from their hiding places and accelerated toward the Carax. Fleet, not from the front where defenses would be strongest, but from below the ecliptic plane where sensors were sparse. Han's voice was cool and focused. Scout team weapons hot, approaching targeting range in 30 seconds. The small human ships flew in a pattern that would have horrified Coalition tacticians, seemingly random, constantly changing direction, never maintaining formation. To an outside observer, it looked like chaos. To the humans, it was controlled. Improvisation, fire, Han commanded. The attack caught the Carax completely by surprise. Their ships had been arranged to counter the standard Coalition response, a frontal defensive perimeter. Instead, they were hit from below by weapons targeting their least protected areas. 3 Carax ships erupted in flames before they even registered the attack. Breaking away, Han reported. Enemy attempting to lock targeting systems. The scout ships scattered in 6 different directions, each one executing pre-planned but seemingly random evasive maneuvers. The Carax weapons fired and missed. On the Dauntless, Kim watched with satisfaction. They're confused, their targeting algorithms are failing. He turned to his communications officer. Signal the main fleet. Execute Thunder Run. Across the system, the remaining human ships powered up and accelerated toward the Karax fleet from multiple vectors, not in formation, but in what appeared to be a disorganized rush. The Karax responded predictably, shifting their formation to create a defensive sphere, exactly what coalition forces would have done, and exactly what Kim had counted on. "They're bunching up," Park observed, concentrating their firepower inward. "Perfect," Kim smiled. "Commander Han, you have a go for Phase 2. The scout ships, which had appeared to flee, suddenly looped back toward the Karax fleet. But instead of attacking, they launched hundreds of small objects. Deploying gravity mines, Han confirmed. These weren't standard weapons. They'd been cobbled together from mining equipment, reprogrammed to create localized distortions in gravity, not enough to damage ships, but enough to throw off the precise calculations Karax weapons relied on. When the main human fleet opened fire seconds later, the Karax point defense systems missed over 70% of incoming projectiles. Their perfectly arranged defensive sphere became a liability, as ships couldn't maneuver without risking collision. "They're trying to adapt," Park reported, watching the enemy movements. "Their command ship is issuing new orders." "Too late," Kim said. "They're thinking linearly, trying to solve each problem individually. They don't see the trap yet. The human attack continued, but with a crucial difference from standard tactics. It had no center, no clear objective. Some ships focused fire on Karax engines. Others targeted communications arrays. Still others seemed to ignore the larger vessels entirely, instead destroying support craft. "Sir," Park called out, "the Karax are transmitting large data packets. I think they're trying to analyze our attack pattern." Kim nodded. "They're looking for the logic, the algorithm. They think if they gather enough data, they can predict what we'll do next." He opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, implement. Phase 3. I repeat, implement Phase 3. Immediately, the human fleet's tactics shifted completely. Ships that had been attacking broke off and adopted defensive postures. Ships that had been hanging back charged forward. The scout team regrouped into a tight formation, while the larger vessels scattered. On the Karax command ship, battle computers struggled to process the seemingly contradictory data. Their tactical models failed to find the pattern because there was no single pattern, only humans making decisions based on the changing situation. "They're faltering," Han reported excitedly. "Two of their heavy cruisers just collided trying to reposition." A cheer went up across the human fleet as the Karax formation began to dissolve into confusion. Their legendary discipline was breaking down in the face of an enemy they couldn't predict. "Now for the killing blow," Kim said. "All ships, execute Thunderclap." This was the riskiest part of the plan. Every human ship accelerated to maximum speed, directly toward the center of the Karax fleet, a move so seemingly suicidal that no coalition tactician would ever have authorized it. The Karax, trained to fight enemies who valued self-preservation, above all didn't know how to respond. Their formation fractured further as individual captains made contradictory decisions. "They're breaking," Park announced. "Their command structure is collapsing." At the last possible moment, the human ships veered away, launching their remaining weapons directly into the disorganized heart of the Karax fleet. The explosions chain-reacted through the tightly packed enemy vessels. When the light faded, over half the Karax fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remainder were already retreating, abandoning their attack on the colony. Aboard the dauntless, exhausted but triumphant humans embraced each other. They had achieved in hours what the coalition had failed to do in months. Stop the Karax. "Advance. Message from Admiral Lee," the communications officer announced. "Encoded channel." Lee's face appeared on Kim's private screen. "The Council is in uproar," he said without preamble. "They're demanding to know what happened. Someone leaked footage of the battle." "Are they going to acknowledge us?" Kim asked. "Not yet," Lee replied. "But they're listening now. The Karax are pulling back across 3 sectors. They're completely revising their strategy." "Because they can't predict us," Kim said. "Exactly. Their entire war plan was based on the coalition's predictability." "You've thrown them into chaos." Lee paused. "There's something else. We intercepted Karax communications after the battle. They're calling you the Ghost Fleet, and—" He hesitated. "They're afraid." Kim looked around at his crew, humans who had been told they were too unpredictable, too emotional for modern warfare. Good, he said simply. They should be. The Coalition Central Command Station hung in space above New Terra, a massive structure housing the combined military leadership of 17 species. Normally bustling with activity, the station now operated in emergency mode. Lights dimmed to conserve power. Non-essential personnel evacuated. A sense of impending doom hung in the recycled air. On the main command deck, Admiral Lee stood surrounded by alien leaders, all watching the tactical display with growing horror. The largest Carax fleet ever assembled, over 200 ships, had encircled the station in a perfect blockade formation. "All escape routes are cut off," announced General Ziv, his scaled skin pale with stress. "Their position is mathematically optimal. No conventional approach can break that blockade." The council representative, a tall, willowy being named Trell, spoke with quiet resignation. "Perhaps we should consider surrender terms. The station houses too many high-value personnel to risk destruction." Lee said nothing, checking his personal communicator one last time. The message he'd been waiting for finally appeared. "Shadow Fleet in position, awaiting your signal." He took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived. "Before we discuss—" "Surrender," Lee said carefully. "I believe we should review all options." "What options?" Trell asked bitterly. "Our reinforcements are hours away. The Carax outnumber our defense fleet 5-1. Their formation is impenetrable." Impenetrable. "Using conventional tactics," Lee agreed. "But what about unconventional ones?" The alien leaders stared at him, confusion evident in their various physiologies. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" asked Trell. Lee straightened his uniform. "I'm suggesting that perhaps Resolution 7293 Delta was premature, that removing humans from combat roles may have been a mistake." The room fell silent. Even the technicians stopped working to listen. "You dare question a council decision at this moment?" Trell's voice rose in pitch. "This crisis proves the wisdom of the ban. Look at the perfect geometric precision of the Carax formation. This is a battle of mathematical certainties, not chaotic human impulses." Lee nodded toward the display. "And yet we're losing. The Carax have adapted to our predictability. They know exactly what we'll do before we do it." "What exactly are you proposing?" General Ziv asked, more curious than angry. "I'm proposing we fight chaos with chaos." Lee activated his command override codes and opened a secure channel. "Major, Song, this is Admiral Lee. You are authorized to engage." "I repeat, you are authorized to engage." The response came immediately. "Understood, Admiral. Shadow Fleet moving into attack positions." Trell's 4 eyes widened in shock. "What have you done?" Before Lee could answer, new signals appeared on the tactical display. Human ships, dozens of them, approaching from directions no tactician would consider sensible. "Is that a human fleet?" someone gasped. "How is this possible?" Lee stood tall, dropping all pretense. "Operation Shadow, a contingency plan we developed when the ban was first imposed. These are human veterans, flying ships that officially don't exist anymore." "This is treason," Trell sputtered. "A direct violation of council orders." "Yes," Lee agreed calmly, "and it might be our only chance to survive." All eyes turned to the tactical display as the human fleet appeared to do something insane. They formed a spiral pattern that tactical computers immediately flagged as suboptimal and tactically unsound. Major Song's voice came through the command channel. "Shadow Fleet in formation, beginning Operation Whirlpool." The human ships accelerated, maintaining their spiral pattern as they approached the Carax blockade. The alien officers watched in confusion as the seemingly chaotic formation continued to tighten its spiral. "What are they doing?" Ziv wondered. Aloud. "That formation exposes their flanks, scatters their firepower. It makes no sense," agreed another officer. "The battle computers can't even calculate their attack vector." "That's the point," Lee said quietly. "The Carax can't predict what they can't understand." On the display, the Carax responded exactly as Lee had hoped. They maintained their mathematically perfect blockade, adjusting slightly to concentrate firepower where the spiral would eventually intersect their formation. They think they can. Calculate where our ships will be, Lee explained. They're preparing to fire at predicted positions. What happened next astonished everyone watching. Just before reaching the Carax line, the human spiral suddenly inverted direction. Ships that had been flying in a clockwise pattern switched to counterclockwise. Vessels that had been on the outside of the spiral moved inward while those in. The center expanded outward. The Carax fired and hit nothing but empty space. Impossible, Trell whispered. No, Lee said with pride. Human. The Shadow Fleet struck the Carax formation at points of vulnerability no tactical computer had identified. They didn't target the obvious weak spots that any strategist would look for, but instead focused on seemingly random vessels, creating asymmetrical gaps in the blockade. This isn't chaos, General Ziv realized, watching with new understanding. This is controlled unpredictability. The battle unfolded like nothing the Coalition officers had ever witnessed. The human ships moved as if engaged in an intricate dance, constantly shifting positions, never establishing a pattern the Carax could exploit. Major Song's voice remained calm through it all, directing the flow of the battle not through rigid commands, but through broader intentions. Group 3. Create confusion in their western quadrant. Group 5. Exploit the gap they're creating near their command ship. They're communicating in concepts rather than specific orders, Lee explained to the stunned alien leaders. Each ship commander interprets and executes based on their own judgment of the situation. The Carax began to falter. Their perfect formation broke apart as they tried to counter attacks coming from unpredictable vectors. Ships that had operated in flawless unison now fired at different targets, moved in different directions. They're experiencing tactical confusion, Park observed, now serving as Lee's aide on the command station. Their entire battle doctrine is based on predicting enemy movements. When they can't predict, they can't coordinate. Within an hour, the seemingly invincible Carax blockade had shattered. Nearly half their ships were destroyed or disabled. The remainder were retreating in disarray, their legendary discipline broken by tactics their battle computers couldn't process. As the last Carax vessels jumped to light speed, a profound silence fell over the command deck. The alien officers stared at the tactical display, then at Admiral Lee, then at the readings confirming their unlikely salvation. Council Representative Trell approached Lee slowly. "You violated direct orders," he said, his voice lacking its earlier outrage. "You secretly maintained a human military force against explicit Council policy." "Yes," Lee agreed, offering no defense. "And in doing so," Trell continued, "you saved this station, everyone aboard it, and possibly the entire Coalition." An emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was convened on the command station 3 days later. Representatives from every Coalition species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall. At the center stood Admiral Lee, Captain Kim, Major Song, Lieutenant Park, and a dozen other human officers, the architects of Operation Shadow. The council leader, a venerable being with translucent skin that glowed with internal light, addressed the assembly. "For too long we have viewed the human approach to warfare as a liability," she began. "Their unpredictability, their emotional responses, their willingness to improvise, these qualities seem dangerous, destabilizing to our carefully ordered military doctrine." She gestured toward the humans standing before her. "What we failed to understand is that chaos itself can be a strategy, that intuition sometimes trumps calculation, that the willingness to take risks, to attempt the seemingly irrational, can overcome enemies who rely solely on predictable patterns." Admiral Lee stepped forward. "Humans don't embrace chaos for its own sake," he explained. "We use it as a tool. We understand that sometimes the perfect plan is the one the enemy can't predict." The council leader nodded. "Resolution 7293 Delta is hereby rescinded. Humans will be reinstated to all military positions previously held. Furthermore, a new Coalition tactical division will be established, focused on what we are now calling adaptive warfare strategies." Captain Kim couldn't help but smile as he watched the council members, beings who had once feared human unpredictability, now nodding in agreement. "There is one more matter," the council leader continued. "The Carax have sent a communication. They wish to discuss peace terms." A murmur of surprise rippled through the hall. They specifically requested human representatives at the negotiations, she added. It seems our unpredictability makes us intimidating at the diplomatic table as well. As the assembly concluded, Park leaned toward Kim. So our greatest weakness turned out to be our greatest strength. Kim nodded, watching as coalition officers, human and alien alike, mingled together, already discussing new combined tactics. They banned us because they didn't understand us, he said. Now they're welcoming us back for the same reason,